Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I have another travel vlog guide sort of thing for you today. I'm really glad that you're enjoying these little guides, especially like as I went to these places a couple of years ago. It's great to see that you still want to see like the footage that I shot. So that's just a little disclaimer. This is from a couple of years ago, so some places might have changed a little bit, but I have done a little bit of research just in case they've changed ridiculously. So today I'm going to be talking about Borneo. I previously had been to Malaysia and we were doing mainland Malaysia, and then we flew over to the Malaysian part of Borneo on our big backpacking trip. So if you do want to see what we got up to in mainland Malaysia, I will link the video either down below or in the little I description thing, and you can have a little look at that because we did loads and loads of stuff on the mainland. So yeah, so this is basically what we got up to when we went to that part of Borneo, and we also stuck to the side of Sabah, so it's split into two kind of main parts of the Malaysian part of Borneo. So we did mainly kind of the Sabah side. Also, I'm sorry if the lighting changes. It's like goes from really sunny to like really dark, so I'm doing my best with my ring light here. So let's just crack straight into it. We flew from Kuala Lumpur on the mainland to Kota Kinabalu. That's kind of the main city in that area. I think it's also the capital as well. If you're going to Borneo and that part of Borneo, I really recommend actually spending a little bit of time in Kota Kinabalu. When we first went there, we really weren't sure whether we liked it or not, and we booked it a couple of days just to kind of get a feel for the area. But I totally recommend it. It's such an unassuming city. Like, you really don't think you're going to enjoy it as much as you do. We were staying near the waterfront at Kota Kinabalu, and I totally again recommend that sort of area if you're near the waterfront, because it's such an amazing place to go during the day and during the evening as well. So during the day along the waterfront there are a lot of markets which you can walk through, and they sell everything from clothing to seafood to fresh fruit and veg, loads of different stuff. And then in the evenings you've got the bars that are along there, and they're not overly expensive as well. We found some that were really reasonably priced, and we would sit and have cocktails and beers and just watch the sunset over the most amazing open expanse of water. One of the things that makes Kota Kinabalu really special is that there are some amazing islands just off the coast, and I totally recommend going to them. Now, these islands are part of the Tunku Abdul National Park. My best attempt at saying that right. And there is basically a collection of islands, some big, some really small, and they have the most amazing marine life, and also the islands themselves are absolutely beautiful. There's not really many inhabitants on them. There's only like a couple of hotels and I think some locals, I'm not really sure, but it is really pretty much desert island vibes. To get there you just have to head to Jesselton Point, which is basically the main jetty that takes everyone off to the islands and also elsewhere. And it is along the waterfront as well, really easy to get to if you're staying in that area. So the amazing thing about going to these islands is that if you go to Jesselton Point, you can go to loads of different like little mini travel agencies, and you can go off to one, or you can do a few in a day. They have like a specific pick up and drop off time, and you can also hire snorkeling gear as well if you want to do a little bit of snorkeling while you're there. When we were in Kota Kinabalu, we decided to go to Manukan, which is one of the bigger islands, not the massive island, but it's definitely one of the bigger ones, and Suluk, which is a tiny island, which I also totally recommend going to because not many people go to that one. It's mainly the bigger islands that people tend to go to because they are nearer the coast, so it doesn't take as long to get there. People tend to go to the bigger islands out of convenience, but just take that little extra time, go a little bit further afield, and the smaller islands are just as beautiful, if not more, because there's not as many people there. The water around these islands are absolutely crystal clear, and there are some amazing little collections of coral reefs. The marine life is amazing. I saw my first clownfish there, which was pretty awesome for me, seeming as I only really got into snorkeling on this backpacking trip when we started in Indonesia, And the fact that I was able to snorkel and see clownfish in their own little anemone, that was just amazing. That was like one of my highlights of the whole trip. The amazing thing as well is because these islands are part of a national park, they are really clean and well maintained. There are toilets on them, and there's also like a little cafe restaurant on some of them as well. But you don't tend to get the kind of rubbish and debris that you would get on some of the other islands in Asia, because it is well monitored and well cleaned. We then decided to leave the coast and head more inland to the mountains. So there is an amazing mountain which is Mount Kinabalu, and we decided to go to the Kinabalu National Park, which is where the mountain is. The main reason why we wanted to head into the mountains is we wanted to do some hikes up there. Now, we had done some pretty kind of long hikes when we were in New Zealand, but we had heard that the hikes around here, this area, were amazing. And also you could do some shorter hikes, like you didn't have to commit to like a full day. You could do some that were like a couple of hours, and that was the main reason why we wanted to go there. We stayed in the village of Borneo, which is a tiny village which is just a stone's throw away from the national park. It's like a 5-minute drive from there. Now, Borneo is not exactly the best town geared to tourists and visitors. There are some places to stay around Borneo, and we ended up staying next to a KFC, which was the only eatery in the entire place. So we pretty much ended up having KFC for breakfast, lunch and dinner for about 3 days straight. And that's the only kind of downside of staying so near to the national park without actually staying in the national park, which is quite expensive. There may have been some that have opened over the last couple of years since I've not been there, but when we went, it was just a KFC, so I would definitely look into doing some research if you're wanting to do some hikes and stay around that area. We also found that if there were eateries, they were definitely more geared to the locals and not to anyone else at all. Like, it would just be locals eating there, no menus outside, no idea that it actually was a restaurant or anything. I also suggest that you go to do hikes at the Kinabalu National Park if you are a serial hiker. If you're kind of a person who likes to walk but doesn't like to do anything too long or crazy, or you don't have the gear for it or anything, I'd maybe give this a pass. So when we went there, it was raining, and the thing that we found was that even the smaller hiking trails were really poorly maintained. When we went there hadn't been like a huge amount of rain, but it just had been a little bit, and we found that the path had actually flooded over with mud, and so some of it was actually really hard to get through. And in the end, we sadly just gave up because we found that we weren't really wearing the proper hiking gear, we weren't having proper hiking boots or anything. which is totally understandable, but we'd come to, when we'd done our research, we were told that you didn't have to have all the gear to do these smaller hiking trails, which was fine for us. So that's just something, again, to keep an eye out for. If you really want to like go hardcore and do like a day's hike, some people do like the three-day hike, I think, up to the mountain itself. If you want to do that, then go for it. But I think you really need to be a serial hiker if you want to go and do any of the trails in the national park. So as you can tell so far, this part of our trip wasn't exactly the best. We kind of just took it as it was, which is totally fine. Sometimes you get that when you're traveling. You might go to a place and things just don't work out. We did also decide to go to the pouring hot springs, which was, again, not really what we expected. When we'd been to hot springs around Asia and also New Zealand, they had been natural hot springs. But when we went there, it was very commercialized and very touristy, because basically they were almost like artificial. So even if the hot springs were natural waters, the bits around it, like they'd been made into like swimming pools and jacuzzi bits, and it wasn't really what we were expecting. It was so busy as well, like you couldn't even get into any of the pools, it was so busy. I have to say though that this is a great place for wildlife. We saw some amazing things there which we had like never seen before. Some gigantic bugs, like if you're not a bug person then I'd look away now. We just saw some amazing things, and also the forest there is obviously beautiful. There is also a canopy walk there. Again, the only thing is that it is very touristy in the fact that so many people get on it, and then when people get halfway down, a lot of the tourists then have pictures at each step. So you're kind of just stood there thinking, I just want to get off. Like you look at the views and they're beautiful, but people are just not moving because they just want to take photos. So again, that's just something to know if you're planning on going there. Next, we headed to Sepilok. We jumped on a bus, didn't have a seat, so we sat on the floor. And we went to Sepilok, which is basically the home of orangutans and sun bears. Sepilok is essentially smack bang in the middle of the rainforest. So when the driver drops you off at this like roundabout, there's like a long road, and that is basically Sepilok. If you get dropped off during the daytime, there are normally tuk-tuks and taxis that will take you to wherever you want to go. Totally recommend doing that. However, if you get there at the middle of the night like we did, there is no one there, and you have to walk down this kind of mile-long road to wherever you are staying. Some people do like day trips to Sepilok. I love the fact that we got to stay in Sepilok, and I think it's definitely something I would recommend. So we ended up walking down this road to where we were staying, which was near the Rainforest Discovery Centre. Just be aware, there are wild dogs there, and you kind of just have to have your wits about you, because it is pretty creepy when these dogs suddenly come running at you. So as I said, I totally recommend staying actually in Sepilok, because waking up in the middle of the rainforest is just the most amazing thing I've ever done. You wake up and it's just so peaceful, and you can just hear the birds, and you can hear the wind going through the trees. There are actually places to stay around the orangutan and sun bear centres, but we actually stayed, as I said, near the rainforest one, and it was great because it was like a 10-minute walk from the centres. I totally recommend going to the Rainforest Discovery Centre if you are staying around Sepilok, or if you're on a day trip and you've got time to go. It's a beautiful place. There are loads of trails actually going through the forest. You don't have to be a serial hiker. They're pretty easy walks to do, but you can take as long as you want or just do a quick whip round. The wildlife is amazing again, and there are loads of canopy walks. Some of them have also got towers as well, so you can go all the way up to the tower and just look out onto the treetops, which is pretty cool. And of course you can't go to Sepilok without seeing the orangutans. It's a must see. So I recommend actually going when it's feeding time. I think they have a time in the morning and the afternoon, but just double check timings. and that is probably the best time to go because you almost have a guarantee of seeing an orangutan. Sure, they put it on so that tourists can take pictures and whatnot, but because at the centre the orangutans are semi-wild, they come and go as they please. When we went at feeding time, we obviously saw them, and they also were some that were dotted around kind of just off of the walks. The other great thing is that there is a nursery there for some of the younger babies and also the juveniles, and you can go and kind of see them playing. When we went, it was just kind of the juvenile orangutan. Most of them have been orphaned or they were being nursed back to health, which is a great thing about this place. It really is helping the orangutan population. I also really recommend going to the sun bears, which are just next door from the orangutans, and the great thing as well is that you're quite high up and you just look down on the sun bears. And we went when they were eating, and it was amazing seeing them trying to open the coconuts. That was a really cool thing to see. And as well, being up high, you don't feel like you're they're too up close and you're intruding on them. It's quite nice seeing them from afar. After spending an amazing time in Sepilok, we headed back to Kota Kinabalu because we were going to be flying out from Singapore, and we just kind of spent the last couple of days again doing a bit more island hopping, a bit more snorkeling, and also just having an amazing time watching the amazing sunsets. We also did see a pretty incredible thunderstorm and some lightning over the sea, and I'll put that footage in now because that was pretty cool to see.
Got it.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh.
So there we go, that is my time in Borneo. I really hope you enjoyed this. Please do let me know if you are heading to Borneo and whether this has helped you kind of put some places you want to go on the map for you. Or if you've been, do let me know where you actually went in Borneo, because obviously it's a huge place and I only saw a little snippet of it, but that is what I did when we went to Borneo. If you are new, please do subscribe, like and comment as well, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!